the ridge above the valley. The first shot didn't echo. It cracked the world open. Specialist Luke Bennett hit the dirt as rounds snapped over his head, tearing through the thin mountain air. Dust and rock kicked up around him as his heart slammed into overdrive. "Contact front. High ground," someone shouted. Luke pressed himself behind a jagged outcrop, chest heaving, trying to see through the chaos. The ridge above them, just a few hundred meters up, had come alive with muzzle flashes. They were exposed, pinned down, and the enemy had the high ground. Kunar Province, Afghanistan. 2010. The mountains didn't forgive mistakes. They didn't care how trained you were, or how ready you thought you were. Out here, every step upward came with a cost, and every ridge could become your last. Just hours earlier, Luke had been laughing with his squad at a small outpost carved into the mountainside. A place of sandbags, worn boots, and quiet routines. Private Mason Cole had been cleaning his rifle, shaking his head. "I don't trust how quiet it's been," Mason said. Luke smirked. "You'd rather it not be?" Mason shrugged. "At least then you know where things stand." Now they knew. "Bennett, we need eyes on that ridge." Staff Sergeant Keller yelled. Luke swallowed hard. The ridge loomed above them, steep, rocky, and fully exposed. "Sir, that's open ground," Luke called back. Keller nodded grimly. "Yeah, it is." A pause. Then, "But we don't have a choice. That's how it always was. Not between safe and dangerous, but between dangerous and more dangerous." Luke adjusted his grip on his rifle. His legs felt heavy. Not from exhaustion. From hesitation. He thought of home. Flat land. Open skies. His mother's voice reading scripture at the kitchen table. "God is our refuge and strength." He hadn't thought about that in weeks. Not out here. Out here, it felt different. Another burst of gunfire snapped overhead. "Move," Keller shouted. Luke ran. The first few steps were the hardest, because every instinct screamed to stay down, to hide, to survive. But something deeper pushed him forward. Rocks shifted under his boots as he climbed. Bullets struck the ground nearby, sending shards of stone flying. He dove behind a small ledge, breathing hard. "Bennett, you good?" Mason's voice crackled over the radio. "I'm here," Luke replied, but his voice shook. He looked up. The ridge still towered above him. Still far. Still dangerous. For a moment, he considered stopping. Then he remembered something his father once told him before he deployed. "Courage isn't about not being afraid, son. It's about deciding something else matters more." Luke closed his eyes briefly. "Then help me keep moving," he whispered. He climbed again. Step by step. Rock by rock. Each movement deliberate. Each breath earned. Halfway up, he reached a narrow shelf where Mason had taken cover. Mason looked at him, eyes wide but focused. "I thought you were staying back," Mason said. Luke shook his head. "Not today." They moved together now. Two soldiers against a ridge filled with unseen threats. Gunfire intensified as they got closer. The enemy knew what they were doing, trying to cut them off before they reached the top. Luke felt fear rise again, sharp, suffocating. But this time, he didn't fight it. He carried it. "On me," Mason shouted. They pushed the final stretch. And then, they crested the ridge. Everything changed. The enemy positions came into view, fighters moving between rocks and shallow cover. Luke didn't hesitate. He engaged. The fight was close, loud, relentless. But they had momentum now. And something else. Position. More of their squad pushed up behind them. The tide shifted. Slowly. Then all at once. Minutes later. It was over. The ridge was theirs. Luke dropped to one knee, breathing hard, sweat mixing with dust on his face. Mason sat beside him, shaking his head in disbelief. "We actually made it," Mason said. Luke nodded slowly. "Yeah, we did." But deep down, he knew it wasn't just them. That night, back at the outpost, Luke sat alone outside his tent, looking out at the mountains. They were quiet again. Still. Almost peaceful. He pulled out a small Bible from his pack. He hadn't opened it in a long time. Until now. His eyes fell on a verse. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Psalm 23. Luke read it again. Slower. Letting it sink in. "Walk through," he said softly. "Not around. Not away from. Through." He looked back toward the ridge they had taken. The place that could have ended everything. But didn't. Because sometimes, God doesn't remove the mountain. He walks with you. As you climb it. Years later, Luke would tell that story not as the day he faced the enemy, but as the day he understood what it meant to trust God in the middle of fear. Because courage didn't come when the danger left. It came when he realized he was never climbing alone. Commentary note: this story reflects the biblical truth found in Psalm 23, that even in the darkest and most dangerous places, God is with us. Luke's journey shows that courage is not the absence of fear, but trusting God while moving forward anyway. It also highlights American values of perseverance, duty, and brotherhood under pressure. Historical note: this story is a fictional narrative set during Operation Enduring Freedom, OEF, in Afghanistan, particularly reflecting combat conditions in Kunar province around 2010. U.S. forces frequently engaged in mountainous warfare where enemy forces often held higher ground, creating significant tactical challenges. While the characters are fictional, the environment, combat dynamics, and experiences described are representative of real operations conducted by American service members during the Afghanistan War.